Welcome to the front row. I'm your host, Brad Rowe, and this is a space where unfiltered stories of the human condition get told. Pull up a chair.
And I want to touch base on something you just mentioned, like you only being 5% there, being surrendered to God. And I know that, even though when you give your life to God, when you give your life to Christ, it doesn't mean this hardship goes away. It doesn't mean the pain and suffering goes away. Sometimes it actually gets worse. And I know that, you have been through so much in your life, and at some point we'll get to all that. But right now you're navigating a difficult season since I've met you, and probably being stretched and challenged more than you ever thought of. You look back at the other things you've been through in your life and you're like, I didn't think it could get any worse.
Nope.
And here you are. Man, George, so right now you are going through a very challenging season, and there's a lot of different stories and a lot of different things at play here. And all I can say is, since the day that I met you, just so proud and so in awe of how you are as a man, the way that you've navigated some of these situations, and the way that you've just kind of relied on God instead of reacting to certain situations, and not to say that you haven't been going through it and you haven't dealt with your amount of pain. But there's been areas where, man, it's been overly impressive to watch how you're walking through all this.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I want to say this too for everybody listening. There's a version of my life. Yeah, I've been coaching, consulting, speaking on personal development and all this stuff for 20 years. And everything I've shared today already, I do not want you to think that I have it all figured out, because I will be the first one to tell you that I don't. And the closer I get to God and the more life I live, the less and less and less I know I have figured out. And so I want to also acknowledge that I've talked about my story. I've been in the deep trenches of this for a long time. So I talk about it like it's nothing. My heart rate is 111 right now. So that means my nervous system is still feeling it. And so I just wanted to say that, because I've been told before, like, sometimes I make it sound easy. It's not easy by any means. It's simple. I've also learned, and I have to thank the Marine Corps for this, that there's a lot of progress to be made and actions that can be taken when you are convinced that you can't move. And that is one blessing that I have, because I was put in situations where pausing was not an option. And you can realize that you can be in the dumps of it and still move. And I am just obsessed in this movement piece. And so I just wanted to say that, because I don't ever want anyone to feel like I'm diminishing anything, or I will never understand, if you're listening to this, what your situation feels like or what you're going through. Just like you will never understand mine. And I always try to provide this lens of perspective of wisdom and reminders, and everything I speak of are things that I have firsthand lived and navigated and have learned through God, that I will never be done navigating until I am with Him for eternity. But I also say this, that I don't ever want you to feel like I have it figured out, or I have the answer and you don't, or you don't see it. Because for as many things that I've shared in confidence today with the wisdom, in a year, there's going to be 100 things I didn't know that I see differently, that you might see that I don't see. And my hope is that when I share any of this, anything I've talked about, that maybe it brings you from unaware to aware, or it changes your perspective in a situation for you, but you're never in it alone. And I say that with like the utmost humility, because a lot of the things that I talk about, actually, I'll just say all of it. I don't prepare keynotes. I've never written one in my life. I give them off the top of my head. They're God speaking through me, and they come with their own consequences on the other side of like, did I really just say that? Or now I have to clean up this conversation, but I don't pretend to have it all figured out. I don't. by any means whatsoever. And, what you just said, I first want to say thank you to. And I'm receiving all of that because I see that. And I see the way in which I try to hold myself as a God-fearing man, and that perspective as a God-fearing man. And, it reminds me of Matthew, where it's turn the other cheek. And that's not turn the other cheek and let somebody beat you up, but it's like when I get smacked in the face, that's only one side of my face. The other side has the ability to meet with love and understanding and curiosity. And that's something that's important to me. It's like what I value. I have this obsession with making sure that every human I've ever met, no matter the circumstance or situation, feels seen. And I realized that if it wasn't for my whole childhood, I would never have that obsession, because I just wanted to be seen the whole time. And I joke, and you've heard this for years, if you want to get God to laugh, tell him your plans. Right. And I never really understood that, but I really believe that now. The more and more I get into the Word of God, like, it reminds me of Malachi, where, the Bible talks about, God purifying us and removing the impurities. And that's done through massive amounts of heat or massive amounts of pressure. And I've also learned to become really specific with my prayers, because vague prayers get me vague solutions that I don't like walking through. And God listens. He's proven that to me millions of times. But also it's a very big invitation that the pressure and the things that show up in my life, show up in my client's life, show up in my partner Kate's life, that show up in the divorce, that show up in co-parenting. If I find that I'm reacting to them, I look at that as a diagnostic tool for myself. Because if I was truly at peace and my identity was firmly rooted in Christ, then none of those things could rock me. And so I find it's easier and more empowering to look at them as opportunities for me, more so than things that are happening to me. And you made a point earlier where I remember moments. Like, I remember in the Marine Corps, I could probably think of 10 off the top of my head, where I'm like, how am I going to make it through this? Like, how am I going to survive this? From the opiate addiction to deployments to the Somalia deployment, changed me. I was 21 years old and I was in a war-torn country with everything you can imagine for 13 months. And now I look back and I'm like, can I go back there? I'll do that again. But then there's also a part of me that I want to do that again or compare it, because it's something I know and it's something I've navigated before. And so there's this like falling in love with the unknown, but also falling in love with the situations that really are answers to my prayers. And somewhere earlier in the show, we were talking about this when, you were talking about how, changing your perspective today doesn't necessarily change your finances, doesn't necessarily change your weight or what you see in the mirror. But I've also learned that I keep putting a worldly time view on God's timeline. And I measure in days sometimes. Sometimes I measure in hours, but yet I want to change in a decade. I want a different life in 7 years. And I have to make sure that I'm focused on the right measurement window, and I'm feeding that. Like, there's an incredible book from Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy called The Gap in the Gate. And we all do this as human beings. Is like, when we get into a moment or a situation in any of them, I think physical situations like our health, our fitness, what our day looks like, our friend, they're easy to see and to measure. It's when we get into the emotional bucket, like the intrapersonal bucket, like our thoughts, our feelings, our inner dialogue. Sometimes it's a lot harder and we're way more critical of that lens, and we're like, it's never going to change. But what tends to happen is we tend to focus on the gap of head, right? We'll be like, oh yeah, but like, it'll never be different, or like, this could take years. But if we were to actually pause for a moment and to look at the gain and look backwards of where we were a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, our perspective shifts drastically, right? And the gain is what shows us all the progress that we've made. But we also have to understand that with any growth in life, there's a law of diminishing returns, right? Like, for you, like, everybody knows you're like a walking Greek god statue. But if I wanted to add 15 pounds of muscle mass, I'm going to do it 5 years faster than you because I'm working with a smaller base that has a lot more room to gain and to grow. You are chocked full of like a walking stone statue. It would probably take you 4 to 5 years of intentionality that might only take me a year and a half because I'm so out of practice. But once I get it and I want to add another 15 pounds, I can't expect it in the first year. I'm going to get 2, 2.5, maybe 1, and I'm going to have to stick to it because the closer and closer we get to like self-actualization or whatever that reality is, the longer and longer the gap between wins, but also the smaller and smaller the gains become. And it requires an increased amount of input and intentionality and discipline to be able to get it, because as quickly or as slowly as you're adding it, you'll lose it 100 times quicker and you'll start to revert back. And so I say all that because my circumstances, they used to be self-created. And now I feel like they're God-created because they're answers to my prayers. They're the things that I asked for. So like, for example, I've had very unhealthy romantic relationships in my life. I will own this all day. I was sexually abused by women. That doesn't lead to healthy romantic relationships when you don't do the work. That led to objectification. That led to objectification. That led to distance. That led to me avoiding physical intimacy, which then led to me getting my needs met or validation from people outside of relationships, never physical, all emotional, because I couldn't be close or I couldn't be vulnerable because I thought it would hurt me. And then I thought you could hurt me, to then me having these patterns of roping people along and then slamming the door in their face and then getting them close and like playing this yo-yo game. Like I was manipulating people back for the pain that was done to me. And that doesn't heal itself, right? There's a deep level of work that I had to do. And I did 8 to 10 years of men's work. Like John Wineland was one of my men's teachers, absolutely incredible. Stefanos, who's like my best friend now, were pivotal in these things. But also it wasn't like I could go to this retreat or I could go do this work for a year and then magically the relationship fixed itself, or when the next relationship showed up. And then it also led to me having leaky energy, right? I couldn't have healthy female relationships in my life because to some degree I was unconsciously trying to get validation and my needs met. And this was traumatizing for so many people. I caused so much pain in people's lives. And I prayed and prayed and I'm doing the work. And it really took me like removing myself, like 3 years of like just me, like no feminine contact, like no energy, nothing outside of work, and like really being okay and content and finding it. But then I was like, oh, I have it all figured out. And then God's like, well, I'm going to give you your dream partner, except you're going to live 3,000 miles away from each other. And she can't get a green card for a long time. And I'm like, and that's been a new answered prayer, because in the distance, I can't hide with distance. I can't be lackadaisical. I can't be self-serving. I can't expect like, oh, I'll just come home from work and fill her bucket, right? Or I'll surprise her with a Post-it note. Like, no, there's 2,500 miles between us. It requires this level of presence. It requires this level of growth. And it's really stretchy for me when my default coping mechanism is to isolate. But if she was with me, I would be isolating on the couch next to her so she could see. And so God's like, but that's not how you steward a relationship. That's not how you lead a relationship. And I'm like, oh, so I got to tell her that I'm doing this? Or like, I got to tell her that, oh, right. And there's all these like answered prayers showing up now that like, I realize that I can lean into them. They're just symptoms. That's all they are. And what I have to ask myself is that if these symptoms are showing up, am I okay with the disease underneath them? Or do I want to get a little bit deeper and see if this is something that I truly want to rectify out of my life? And like, I don't ever want to be in a relationship where my partner is like, he's good, he's not good, he's hot, he's cold, no. But that also means that I have to lead it, and I have to now over communicate, and I have to table conversations, and I have to bring up hard topics, and I have to hear the feedback when I don't. And it's not like I'm going to take space. Like, I'm going to go for a walk. I'll be right back. Like, no, we're on FaceTime. So now I'm locking into like 3-hour conversations that I didn't used to be able to have because my nervous is like, why can we just fix it? Like go to law. I'm like, no, that's not what this is about. It's about being present and being expressed and being heard. And so somewhere in the process of my faith and my relationship with Jesus, my perspective has shifted drastically. I can only give the credit to God. But it's also changed how I see situations now. And like, I still have plenty of moments of coming up and fears that come up in business of like, if this client leaves and X, and I'm like, but if I'm in that gap right now, I'm expecting something from them, or I have an unspoken expectation that hasn't been communicated. Well, that's not for them to communicate. If I spot it, I got it. That's for me to communicate. So I'll make a phone call. I'll make a text like, dude, I was feeling the same thing. I'm so glad you brought it up. And then we recommit and we restructure. And so I don't think there's ever a finish line. I think there's this consistent growth pattern that if we're not growing, we're dying, we're stagnating, we're going backwards. But now I almost look at it like I get excited about it. It's kind of like you give me a big project with my hands and they're like, you can't get that done. I'm like, watch me. And I get excited about it because there's something to like build towards or work towards. And I think something in my relationship with Christ and accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior shifted that for me to where like even the disciples struggled until even post-resurrection and most of their life. And Paul like feeling unworthy and wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Like there's this level of constant self-examination and meekness or humility that comes that really creates the purpose for us, or else there is no purpose if it's not growth, if it's not honoring God and spreading that love. And so I look at it now and I lived a good 20 years of my life in like the victimhood of like, this is happening to me, this is happening to me, this is happening to me. And then it started to shift. And I was like, and I know this is going to sound cheesy and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is happening for me. The situation is going to be the same in our lives no matter what, because until we are gone, we are living in a world that is fallen, full of sin, and full of things that can hurt us, that mold us, that shape us. And so if the situation itself is always going to be the same, one of those perspectives is disempowering and sucks the soul out of me. And the other one turns it into purpose and allows me to do something or grow with it. I'm just going to choose the path that has a little bit more baked in win. And I'm going to pursue that to the best of my ability. And that's really what shifted for me. And then there's this level of personal responsibility that comes with it. And I truly, genuinely believe that in every situation, I'm 100% responsible. And in most of them, and most of the challenges in my life, if I look back, in reflection, I can see how I contributed that got it to that point. It was me not speaking. It was me avoiding. It was me delaying. It was me procrastinating. It was me, to some degree, throwing fire or fuel on that fire. But then it broke and I was like, oh, it was them. No, it was me, because there were also 100 moments where I could have said something or removed myself or acted differently, and I can't go back and change it. But I can learn from that. And I can say, well, next time that shows up, how am I going to show up? How can I meet them with humility? How can I meet them with compassion? How can I meet myself with compassion in that situation so I don't have an anger outburst? Right. And it just becomes this diagnostic tool to like lean into, and it just feels purposeful rather than accidental and reactionary. And every time I've chosen that other perspective, whether it's me as a parent or me as a soon to be ex-husband or me in a relationship or even me as a friend, right? Where I texted you, I'm like, dude, I just need to say I'm sorry. And I sent you a long audio and I'm like, I feel like I've been distancing myself. It's not fair to you. It's because I love you so much and I respect you, but you can see me like other people don't see me. And I just wanted to name it. And you're like, we're good, dude. And I'm like, cool, but I could have let it linger. I could have let it go, but that wasn't on you. That was on me. And that part brings purpose. And it also brings fruit on the other side because it's real. Yeah. And I'm like, so if I have a game to play, like I want to play a game that's going to not only win for me, but it's going to win for everybody else. And it's real, it's authentic. And so I thought I understood perspective in the Marine Corps, but I had forced perspective because I couldn't quit. They couldn't fire me. So it was either do it or get put in the brig, jail, military jail, or lose my rank or lose my pay or do whatever. but I practiced it enough that I saw it. And then when I added the purpose underneath it and God underneath it, I'm like, oh, no, that is how it's supposed to be. There is something to that, right? There's something to moving forward and not allowing my thoughts or emotions to really alienate or dictate my behaviors or taint my behaviors, but to really be like, okay, well, I can run and cry while I'm running. I can do that hike and cry while I'm hiking. I can show up on my podcast and cry while I'm podcasting. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like, it doesn't have to be like, my life is hard, I can do nothing. My life is easy, I can do something. It's regardless of what my experience is, regardless of what I'm feeling, I can honor that and then show up anyways. And ironically, that's been the thing that tends to create relief or tends to create shifting. And the only thing that I've learned is that in all the years of consuming and reading thousands of books, you can go the personal development route. You're 100% responsible 100% of the time. You can go the Joseph Campbell route of the hero's journey, where the journey doesn't end when you slay the dragon. The journey ends when you return to the village to teach the lesson. And then the moment you do, the next villain appears. Or you can go the lens of faith or any other avenue that you find. But eventually, I think all of us have to get to a point in our life where we realize that fortune cookies exist for a reason. And if we just believed what was on the cookie and we acted with discipline towards it, our life would be drastically different. I went down every route: Buddhism, Advaita, plant medicine, personal development. And now I have found that everything I ever found was in my Bible. And everything that's in my Bible tells me the same thing. It's to love God with all of my heart, to obey his commandments, and then to be in obedience. And nowhere does it tell me to go wallow in a hole, to go crawl in a corner, to self-loathe, to self-isolate. It tells me to actually do the exact opposite. And so if that's the path, then eventually we all have to find and dig deep enough until we really, really get that. But the only meaning that exists is the one that we create. And you don't create meaning through thinking. You don't create meaning through self-harm. You don't create meaning through self-punishment. You don't create meaning through self-loathe and no guilt and no shame. The meaning is created through the actions we take in spite of those things, where we turn those things into something good. And we all have to realize that there's no shortcut for any of us. My journey is different than your journey, but the one thing that they all have in common is that every one of them requires pressure to create something worthwhile and actually to create something that we're grateful that we went through. You ask people about their wins, they don't tell you about the wins that came easy. They don't value the ones that came easy. They value the ones that we had to earn and then we had to go for. And so I think for me, what it boiled down to is that because I had a challenging childhood and challenging moments, I got this chip on my shoulder, but the chip was entitlement. I thought that I deserved something. I thought that I had earned it because I navigated it. Well, someone's just going to fix this for me. No, entitlement's dangerous. The only things that I've earned are the things that I go out and get, the fruit that I harvest. Anything other than that, I'm going to be waiting for a whole lot of time and it's never going to come. And so that entitlement's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And it's not about how much money I make or how much impact or how successful. And that's not what it's about. It's in every single bucket. The best things in our life, we've earned, we've created, we've done with our actions, with our words, with our fruit, with our hands. And we have to be content with everything that we have. And then when we are grateful for it and content with what we ask her is well, can I create more? Can I harvest more? Can I plant more? And we have to be willing to walk in that to be able to get it. That's my spiel on that.
Yeah. And like I said, for you to be able to walk through everything that you've been going through, and to keep that positive perspective, because without diving too deep into your story, I mean, you're navigating the potential loss of your life partner because of the circumstances and trying to navigate that, and her own story and her own things that she's dealing with, and being patient as she works through her stuff, and being patient as the divorce unfolds in a way that is most protective of your child more than anything, is what you guys are trying to preserve. And so all these different things that are just kind of playing together, most people would explode or implode or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's I love memorable quotes, but the biggest challenge is that a lot of things in my life I didn't choose. Some of those things in my childhood, Other people cut me, but I was the one that was bleeding on everybody. And I wanted somebody else to come stop the bleeding. And ultimately, nobody can stop the bleeding. And, you just made a point, and I think that that's probably been, if I had a word of the year last year, it was patience. And patience for me taught me that it's not my timing, it's not my will, it's God's timing and God's will. And probably the biggest breakthroughs in my life, because with patience, it allowed me to remove my agenda. And removing my agenda was actually what allows me to understand the other perspective, to understand the other person. And then ironically, if God wants it to happen, somehow it magically happens. But I'm playing my part in it. And my part is, if it's on my plate, it's mine to be supportive of, it's mine to be curious about, but it's not mine to influence. Right. It's not mine to control. It's not mine. Mine is mine. And I have to ask myself, well, am I willing to go through this course? Am I willing to make this work? Am I willing to live on airplanes? Am I willing to do split custody? Am I willing to do all these things? But in all of those situations, the only field that I'm responsible for is mine. And I had a lot of my life where I tried to change everybody else's field so that mine looked better, but it was me just avoiding mine. And it really exposed a lot in me. It exposed that I didn't have a sense of identity, that I didn't have an answer to the question. If you asked me what I valued, I couldn't answer that question. I didn't know, because my life was survival. So I took on whoever's vision was around me. You were my business partner, your vision was my vision. You were my partner, your vision was my vision. That does not lead to healthy relationships, because all of it's false. It's hollow ground. And all of these things, that patience allowed me to really check in and be like, what is my vision? What do I value? And I value depth. Yeah. And I will say that I have the deepest relationship I've ever had in my life with my partner. And it's not predicated on us being in person. I've never felt more connected, more close, more seen, more whole, more desire to love somebody as God's daughter. Yeah. And also, in the same lens, more at peace with whatever she chooses. And the same with my friends. And it's a very, very beautiful, beautiful place to be, but it's also got a massive duality in it. Because there is potential pain and there is potential hurt. Just like with my son and just like with my daughter, who's 21 now. There's a lot of that, but also I think that that's the point. Everybody has their free will and their free choice, but my peace now comes from I know what I value. I know who I am at this current moment, God, until you teach me something else, please, lightly and gently. And that brings a peace, but it also allows me to show up in full force, because I'm showing up with the right agenda, which the agenda is to support. Because even in my current relationship, and she would tell you this, there's probably 20 moments of big decisions in her life where I said the opposite thing of what would have been self-serving. Ironically, she tells me those are the things that she's the most grateful for and the reason she loves and trusts me so much. She's you literally were you put yourself in the cold. For me, I'm because it wasn't about me, but that was something I had to learn. And I had to learn through all the wrong relationships and how I showed up as a child with them. And I had to learn in that 3-year space of I need to know how to love myself and fill my own bucket, because I was letting everybody else fill my bucket, which those weren't holes for anybody else to fill. So I wasn't bringing a man to the table. I wasn't bringing a partner to the table. I was bringing a wounded little 6-year-old boy who was please me, play with me, entertain me. And now I'm oh, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And so all of this, my whole story, my whole journey, if God had me live it just so I could know who I am and know that I love him with all of my heart, it is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, because there's a level of peace in me that I can't even explain. Right. To where the things that I used to see at Storms, which was 1/100th of what's currently happening, used to send me an opiate, recurrences and abuse and drugs and things that I'm not proud of. And now I'm oh, it's a Monday morning. Sweet, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee, because I've been here before, but they don't have the same effect. And it's not some well, I did this and I went to the gym here and I prayed for 25 minutes and I did 85 of these habits and I maximized it. No, it's a piece that can only come from, if I was describing it, my willingness to stare in the mirror until I loved the reflection and not look away until I did.
Right.
And that's still something I practice to this day. I did it this morning. I had tears come out and I was like, yep, I'm going to stare until they go away. And then there's nothing but gratitude and love and compassion for this reflection that I see, reminding me that like I'm made in God's image. He loves me, but he can only love me if I love me as his. And that's probably like the deepest part of it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause like, going to your situation with your partner, you said there's been times where she's withdrawn.
Yep.
And everything in us as a partner that wants to be with someone, like you just want to run, you want to grab, you want to attach. And you knew that like, that was just you trying to fill that hole in your heart because you didn't want to let go.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter about what she's going through. It's about what you wanted.
Yep.
You have been able to just be back and be like, hey, I trust God and I just have to let you do what you need to do. And if it's meant to be, he's going to bring you back into my life.
Yep.
To set back and just give him control of that situation. Of like you said, true love someone is the craziest thing in the world because you have to open yourself up to be absolutely destroyed.
Yep.
And trust that person with your heart.
Yeah.
When you were able to do that and say, God, I trust you because you are the ruler of my heart. And no matter what happens here, God.
Which, by the way, tangibly, if you're listening to this, it was me calling Brad, Brent, and TJ with like dry heaving tears, not like the cute ones, like the ones that come when I get really upset. All of them just listening. And then Brent reminding me, and I'll never forget this, he said it verbatim to me. He said, stop thinking you're more powerful than Jesus and give her to who she belongs to. It was December. I walked out into the snow, barefoot in shorts and a t-shirt. It felt like 100-degree day. I opened my Bible, I put it in the snow, and I prayed and I prayed, and I literally put her in my Bible, like I put her at the feet of Jesus. And I was like, this is all I know, but you're all I have for eternity. I'm sorry for trying to impose my will. I'm sorry for X. I'm sorry for Y, like true repentance. And I crap you not, 2 days later, I about had an aneurysm when that worked, and not worked that I got something, but drastically shifted everything. And we're actually about to record a podcast on this. We've had 100 of those moments on both sides. And it's real and it's authentic and it's connected and it's based on two individuals choosing to be obedient to God and choosing to honor his will for what we think is like the greatest connection ever. But it's something that I really had to experience. And I've had to do it with my son too, because my son's 9 and, I did this with my daughter, but she's my bonus daughter. I love her the same, but he's getting a personality and he's a very, very strong individual and he's self-content. Daddy is codependent as crap on his son. And like, this works out with him every day. And right now, like we were doing custody, like 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. Now we're doing a week. And boy, is it a struggle for me. I don't sleep the same. I don't rest the same. I text him. I'm like, hey buddy, I hope you had the best day ever. Like, how was your day? What was your favorite part? I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. And he's like, okay. And then I'm like, dude, we're going to do this. He's like, cool. And I'm like, give me more. Tell me you miss me. Tell me you love me. Tell me you miss your. And I'm like, holy moly, I'm doing it again. Now I'm doing it with my son. And it's just this constant opportunity to like wring out those parts of my heart, or really a better analogy would be to fill the holes in the fence that were created throughout my life that only God can fill. Right. And I always love that quote is like, you can nail a nail into a fence, but when you pull the nail out, the hole is always there. The hole is always there until you have Jesus, because Jesus is the only person who can fill those holes. But if you don't fill them with Jesus, you end up accidentally trying to fill them with everybody else in the world. And it's unfair to everybody else in the world because they don't know the holes are there. And that's not fair to them because they have their own, right? Like you have to bring a complete fence to the table. And I've learned that only Jesus can fill those holes. And they're sneaky though. I've had them with you. I have them with TJ. I have them with Brent. Sometimes with the three of you, I have 150 holes a week And I'm like, well, they ain't going to fill themselves. I have to fill them. Sometimes it's through a phone call. Sometimes we talk at church. Sometimes we do dinner. Sometimes we just go for a drive. Sometimes I drive to the house. But it's really like this level of personal responsibility and sovereignty, and not expecting anything from the other side, which ironically is the only way that I've learned in my life to truly give, like to give to my son. Like, am I willing to love my son the same no matter what he gives back to me? Am I willing to love my son the same if he chooses to spend more time with his mom and not me? That doesn't mean I'm a bad dad. It doesn't mean I failed as a father. It means that something in his life, there's a need there or something he's pursuing, but I have to trust God. Like that level of surrender, that level of peace, that's probably been the reason that I have the peace that I have now. And I have that surrendered to God and to his will to the best of my ability, which I would grade myself at like 5.3% right now. But in pursuit of it, and that has been the most powerful thing, but also the fruit that's been created from it is like everything in my relationship is real. Like we have a ground rule that says if you think it, feel it, say it within the hour, which means like we both are entrepreneurs. We might be in the middle of a day with 6 podcasts on either side, and I will get a text message that looks like a novel. And I'm like, that's our rule. Okay, time to feel this, time to process this, time to pray over this, and then time to respond and acknowledge this. And I love that though, because the fruit is so real and the connection is so real and the depth is so real. It's the most rewarding thing ever.
Yeah. And that's, especially this day and age, that is so hard to come across. Because I think that distance that you guys had is probably what saves the relationship and allows you to nurture it to a truly biblical relationship. Because like you said, you remove that layer of lustfulness, that layer of comfort of being with each other, be able to just kind of like isolate into each other rather than actually having to speak to each other and understand each other and where you're coming from.
Yeah, there's no accidental depth. It's all intentional at this point, and it's not the illusion of depth either. Like it's real. But I can say with confidence, like I've never had anybody know me like Kate knows, and ditto for her. Like to the point where I'm like, oh no, I get the biblical marriage, I get the biblical relationship. Like the whole point of it is to bring us both closer to God, and there isn't anyone who can see my blind spots, call me on my blind spots, and hold a boundary of those blind spots that like force me into a deeper relationship with the Lord, that force me into a deeper level of obedience with the Lord. And it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. But I don't, pretend to be out here to like preach on relationships. I've helped a lot of them, but I'm growing in my own. But there was this level of immaturity in me for a long time as a man that like thought, being a man or leading a relationship was like checking the boxes, like sending them text messages, getting the little gifts, like paying attention to things. And like there was a drastic immaturity in me because I didn't know. I didn't have it modeled. I didn't understand. And now I'm surrounded by some of the most biblically sound marriages and relationships. And I was like, yep, I'm a kindergartner. Okay, got it, right? And a level of humility that comes with that, but then also a lot of excitement because the fruit of it is insane. Like to have your person and to know your person and to know that like God has trusted you with their heart, but also trusted them with yours to honor him. And, every moment that you focus on the Lord, like there's fruit, but that fruit only tastes good after it's been in the oven. If I'm being honest with you, like, most of the dinners that you want to cook, you don't enjoy until after they've come out of the heat. And then they taste a lot better than eating raw chicken and raw veggies. Like you got to put them in the oven, and like, this relationship is the most beautiful thing ever. It is so fruitful, but we are in the fire together, right? And it's work and it's beautiful. Like I don't think I've ever experienced the level of joy, the level of connection, but to your point, the duality too. The fears are still there and they're increased, they're enhanced because you're like, I can't not have this. And I'm like, oh, there I'm getting attached again. Right. And it's just this constant refinement process. And it's so beautiful.
Oh, George, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. Full vulnerability here. George is one of those people that not only challenges me to be a better person, a better leader, but also brings out a lot of my insecurity.
Ditto.
George is just an intelligent human. He's just filled with wisdom and knowledge. And I've been blessed to be able to go to some of his intensives and just to see the way he commands a room and just to see the way he leads people. And I remember when I was first being called into stepping up and being a leader and helping people. And I see someone like you walk in a room and I'm like, I can't do that. Like, talk about like my insecurities going out. I'm like, no, like that's not me. There's no way I can do that. I'm not as intelligent. I'm not as commanding as he is. But also just thank you. Thank you for being that example. Thank you for making me want to be a better man and come closer to Christ. And I know you'll be the first one to say that, you are a baby, you are an immature at that, but you put the time and you put the effort in and you do what you're being called to. And I'm so grateful to have you as a friend. So grateful for you to help me create this community that we have here, because this is a special community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, there's a lot of very strong faith-based men here that we are attached to, who are just absolute salt of the earth, that want to better the world and want to be better people themselves. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you touching in my life, for God putting you in my life. And I'm so grateful for you, brother.
Brother, ditto. And same. I think that's the beautiful part. You bring out all of mine in the best way. And I'm like, hey, I'm insecure about this because your discipline, your drive, the fierceness at which you love is something to be admired. Like, I've been complimented for that in my life. And then I was like, have you met Brad? Because we're in different universes and the same from, you've taught me a lot about humility, and, we share the same story and the same struggles with a few different patterns, but like pretty much identical. And you showing up in my life, you brought forth things that I had convinced myself I had fixed, but I had just checked the box. And like, you live it fiercely, man. Like, your dedication, your desire, like the fire that you have for people, for the Lord, for yourself, like your presence. And that's the difference between you and I. And I'll own this all day. I love facilitating rooms. I love speaking. I love leading people. I do a little bit of it with presence, and I do a lot of it with words. You do it without ever speaking a word. And I have so many conversations about you, both that I initiate and that other people initiate in this valley. And your presence is massive. And I think God gave me the gift of gab, and he gave you the gift of stature, because that's the influence you have. It's like when you text, when I drive by you, when I see you, I'm like, there's levels to this, and there's levels for me to learn from, and there's levels for me to grow. And so I appreciate you saying that. And also it was the same. I was so scared to get coffee with you that day because I Instagram stalked you, and I was like, oh, here comes my old life flashing right back. Holy moly, in a level that I never made to, and that I didn't have the energy to, and that I stopped when I got close. And like, there's levels. And I think God gave us each a unique gift, but your presence, I think that's the thing that I noticed the most. It's not words with you. It's like this level of presence, this level of power, and truthfully, this level of like being seen. You do it in such a powerful way for everybody that I meet that knows you, for myself included. And your presence calls us up to a standard of as men that I've never met anybody that's called me up to that same level, from Marines to successful business people. And it has nothing to do with your accolades or your body or your training or all of it. There's just this scrappy fierceness where you're like, yeah, that's what like Paul was talking about. That's what Peter was talking about. That's what the disciples were talking about. Like, that's probably the biggest thing that I take from you every single day. Like, the way that you order things and your meticulous nature and the way that you see them through makes me realize how far I get to go, but how blessed I am to have people like you in my life. Also, to mention, just because we're saying it, I have never met somebody that the default answer before you ever ask is yes. And I mean at a level not like, oh, will you take out my trash? Like, oh, you need me to get in my car and drive across the country and pick up a friend of yours? Like, done. You're on the road before we tell you where we're going. Like that level of loyalty and fierceness, man, it's something to admire, but I'll speak for all the men in our group. It's something we all learn from you every single day. And it's made me a better friend to you, but also to the other men in this valley. I say yes more. I give more. I support more because of how you show up. And you are the safest place. I know if I'm in an emergency, if I have a friend coming to town, I don't ever want to take it for granted. But there's a part of me that's like, I already know who to call. Like, that's just how you show up. And so it's all reverberated back to you. You leave the like gift of the gab and talking for 12 hours to me. I got you. Your presence is felt far wider and far longer than anything I could ever do with words. And so I just want to give the same back to you.
Thank you, brother. And also just as just a stark reminder out there of another reason why we need real brotherhood, not just to call us out when we're not in alignment and how we should be, but also to reveal that light that we don't see in ourselves. And I know that's one of your problems. I know it's one of my problems. We don't ever see ourselves how the rest of the world and how God sees us. And forget the rest of the world, how he sees us, how he created us. So to have those little reminders is such a blessing. And I love you. And
I love you, brother. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
We'll wrangle this circus of awareness. And thanks for everybody for listening.
Yeah. And George, you can drop your Instagram, your podcast, everything. I'll put links in there for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're really easy. It's mindofgeorge.com. It's the pinkest website you'll ever see. It looks like a Care Bear threw up on my website. But I have a podcast. I will be doing an episode with Brad. It's in the queue for us to schedule and record. But I talk about everything that it takes to become the person to have the business or life that you desire. I do a solo show every week, which is just me talking, and I do an interview every week, which is me talking to people about the real values, the real struggles, the real stories, the real perspectives. And it's the best place to get a hold of me. And my one thing is I just want to say thank you if you made it this far. Thank you for giving us the gift of your presence and time. And my one invitation, and I say this on my podcast as well, if you've made it this far, there's something that tickled. One thing that tickled. And I think the biggest disservice we can do to ourselves is letting it become shelf help. Like, don't file it away. Don't write it down on a sticky and forget about it. Like, if it landed today, just take that one thing today and go practice it. Go be it. Go have that conversation. Go take that one action. Go do an inventory of your life. But you are never closer than you are right now to what it is that you want to be different. And so let this be the invitation or the permission slip so that you can give the gift to yourself and you can give it to other people. It's what makes us all better and what makes us unique. And if I can support you in any way, you can get a hold of me on my website. If Brad can support you anyway, he loves feedback. He loves hearing takeaways. So shoot him to him, shoot him a message. But no, it takes a community. None of us can do this alone. So the closer we all are, the more we all share, the better we all become. And just grateful. So thank you.
Kind of what you said, it's about action. You know, like you can have all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the understanding, but everything in life takes action. So whatever it is in your life that you feel like you need to change, it's up to you. It's on your shoulders to take that tiny little step to create that change in your life.
Amen, brother. Amen. Love you, buddy.
This story ends today, but yours is still waiting to be told. You're not alone in this walk in life. If this hits you, share it with someone that needs it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Find me at Brad B. Rowe at Instagram. And if you're ready to step into the front row of your life, whether it be the fellowship, the foundry, coaching, or support the ministry, you can find it all at frontrow.co. I'll see you next week.